Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. Again, it's been a while, but we're here to just provide some well needed information. When we just started out our journey as Scotch Bonnet Pepper farmers, it was very difficult for us to find information and good quality information that would really guide us in our planning. So today we just want to give a step-by-step outline of the financial investment that's required and the investment of your time that is required when it comes to farming Scotch bonnet peppers. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to look at the requirements for starting 1 acre of Scotch bonnet peppers. This is from our perspective in terms of us being farmers. So this is just based strictly on our experiences and what we would have done and gone through during planting plot 1 and plot 2. If you watch our previous videos, you'll have an idea of what plot 1 and plot 2 refers to. So how we really started, we really underestimated the time and the financial input that would be required to start and really manage 1 acre of Scotch bonnet peppers. So we want person to have realistic expectations before you go into this area. There are some things that are unplanned and you'll have to just manage as you go along. It's very important that you have a plan in terms of where you want to farm, what you want to farm, who you'll be selling to. So you just need to plan out what your Scotch bonnet pepper farm will look like. When we started, Sheldon really wanted for us to purchase a piece of land before we started. However, we decided to start with lease lands because for more than one reasons. One, it doesn't require that much in terms of an initial investment if you are purchasing land versus leasing land, and so we would be able to start sooner. So while we understand the importance of owning your own land, it is also important to understand that you can start where you are. Lease a piece of land and you start there. For us, we wanted to get something in close proximity to where we live because we have full-time jobs, so going to the farm would be weekends and evenings. So we needed to get something close to where we were, and we were able to find someone who was willing to lease us a piece of land. Now, for us, lease varies from between 30,000 to 50,000 per year per acre, and this is totally dependent on who you are leasing from and what they are looking for in terms of the costs of lease. So for us, $30,000 to $50,000 is what we had to consider for leasing an acre of property. So once we got the land leased, we tried to ensure that the land was as much as possible plowable, so the less large trees and vegetation, it will be better for us. We didn't get ideally what we wanted, but what we got was we were able to plow some parts, so we worked with it because it's very difficult to find land for lease for farming. So the land preparation, initially we paid $28,000 for 1 acre, and that included plowing, harrowing and furrowing, but that was because we were in an agro park and the tractor was available for use there. However, when that tractor wasn't working, we had to get another tractor to come in, and that was about $42,000 for the acre. So it varies again based on where you're located and based on where the tractor is coming from. So once you've completed land prep, we now have to consider irrigation. So for us, we did irrigation hose, drip hose, and what we bought the 12 millimeter hose, and for that the roll is about $25,000, and it can cover about quarter acres. So you'll need 4 of that for 1 acre. And that's if you're doing one hose to the furrow, to the bank. So that would cost about $100,000 just for the drip hose. Now you have to consider also the fittings, connectors, and that's dependent again on the design of your field and of your irrigation system, and that could be from anywhere between $10,000 to $20,000. That's what it was for us when we were setting up our different plots. For irrigation, you will also need a main hose, which is much bigger, 50 millimeters, but thankfully we didn't have to buy any of those for our plot, so I cannot speak directly to what it would cost for that. But irrigation, you have to consider the labor to assist you to put that in, and then you might have to pay some persons per day to assist, and the daily rate now ranges from $2,500 to $3,500 where we are located. So once the land is prepared and the hose have been installed, then you have to consider seedlings, or you should have been considering seedlings even before now. Like, where are you going to get your seedlings? Do you plan to buy from a nursery, or are you going to establish your own nursery and start planting your own seedlings? So when we did plot 1, we bought all our seedlings, and the seedlings rates are right now they're between $12 and $25 per seedling. $12 if you are going to Bodles, and Bodles very often they don't have many seeds because they mainly produce for RADA. So even if you're on the list, sometimes it might take a while for you to get some seedlings, but Bodles are from $12, and then private nursery owners range up to $25. You have to consider transportation as well of your seedlings, because depending on the proximity of the nursery to where you farm, you might have to pay for transportation if your vehicle cannot do the transport, or even if you are using your own vehicle, you might have to consider gas and other transportation requirements. Now, one of the risks with buying seedlings that we encountered was that, well, we were very new. This was our first time, so we really don't know what it looks like, what Scotch bonnet seedlings look like. And so when we planted, we got some seedlings that were not Scotch bonnet. We think they were Caribbean red and then some other mixture. So some of our field was not purely Scotch bonnet pepper seedlings. And so we got different varieties of crops. So if you're going to establish your own nursery, you'll have to consider what you're going to use in terms of the shade cloth or how you're going to set it up, and what is the capacity of the nursery that you're building. You'll need to buy trays, seedling trays, and also potting mixture, which would be dependent on how much you are planning to plant in your nursery. So once you've sourced your seedlings, then you'll have to consider planting. So at plot 1, when we were establishing plot 1, it took us 1 week to plant 6,000 seedlings, because it was just Shellan and I and one other person trying to do that, because again we didn't know what it required in terms of time to plant 6,000 seedlings, nor did we weren't really trying to cut costs since we were just starting up. When we did plot 2, we planted 9,000 seedlings, and we did it in a day. We had 10 persons planting, including Shellan and myself, and we paid approximately $3,000 per person for the day. But it took us 1 day, and everything was in the ground. The next thing now that we had to consider was weed management. At plot 1, if you go back and look at the video, you realize what it was really like at plot 1 in terms of weeds. We were paying persons to weed, but it was a perpetual problem. So by the time they were finished weeding, we had to start weeding again. So we decided that we're going to try the plastic mulching, and the mulching went in after the peppers. The cost for the mulching, the plastic mulching, was $39,000 for 3 feet, for the 3 feet width, 4 feet width, and $56,000 for the 5 feet width. Now, the width that you buy will be dependent on the width of your furrows as well. So you have to assess your situation and determine which one is best for you, or if you would prefer to do grass mulching, that is also an option. Or if you are able to manage your weed in any other way, depending on the size of your farm or other plans that you might have in place, whether you have a waka or whatever it is that you have to manage your weed. But you have to consider weed management as a part of your plan and the cost that is associated with that. The good thing about mulching, though, while we got it to assist in controlling the weeds, we realized that our plants do much better when they are when the area is mulched than when it is not. So that is also something to consider. The pests, then came the pest, and we had to consider how are we going to manage these pests. Scotch bonnet peppers are very sensitive to pests and diseases, and we realized that we really have to do preventative monitoring of these pests and diseases, because once the crop is infested with like the sucking insects and some diseases, it is very difficult to get them back to full production. So it's best to do preventative measures, and so we treat our field at least once every 2 weeks, and this includes treatment for sucking insects. These would include aphids, mites, thrips, and white flies, and other funguses like leaf yellowing and bacterial leaf spots, leaf curl virus. So we have to include a fungicide and a pesticide to monitor these different things that I've listed in every spray cycle. So we will definitely do another video in this series that speaks in depth to our pest management plan, and so you can look out for that video. The cost for us for pest management, roughly it's about $15,000 to $30,000 per month, and again it's dependent on if it's preventative or if we're actually treating something that has infested or started to infest the field. Again, it will be based on the scale of your produce and how you decide on managing it. The nutrients is the next important part, and this part is what we really underestimated at plot 1. Funny story, when we started having issues at plot 1 and the field was not producing how we wanted it to, and the trees were not looking how we wanted them to, and we were seeking advice, and persons were saying to us that it might be one of two things. It could be over fertilizing or under fertilizing, and we were saying to ourselves it must be over fertilizing because we have fertilized that field at least 4 times since we had it. But little did we know, once we did our soil test and got our plan for plot 2, we realized that we were supposed to be fertilizing the field at least twice per week. So we were way off in terms of fertilizer. So for plot 2, for plot 1, for the entire period of the plot, we spent about $30,000 on fertilizers in total. For plot 2, we spent approximately $100,000 on fertilizer per month, and that is at maturity. At the starting stage, it's about $30,000 per month. So you can also look out for the nutrient video, which will follow. We will go much more in depth in terms of what we use and the cost associated with that. But again, if you go back and you look at the videos for plot 2, you will realize that it's a marked difference in terms of the quality of the trees as well as the output from it. So Once the plants are mature and they start producing, they will have to consider harvesting. How are you going to do this? Do you have a big family that can assist you, or do you need to pay persons for labor? We pay between $20 and $30 per pound to pick our peppers, and we pay per pound. There are persons who pay per day, but we've decided to do the pound payment. But let's consider though that once you start reaping, there are losses that you'll have to bear, such as the damage to the trees. We'll have branches breaking, blossoms falling off, and then especially when it rains, there is a lot of spoilage, because for plot 2 for us, it was doing so well. We were getting like £2,000 per week, but we were not able, we were not able to repass 3 months. We were not able to repass 4 months because of the rain, and it started really affecting the peppers. So when you start harvesting, you have to consider, who am I going to sell to? If it's higglers or exporters, the first thing to consider is that they require mainly green peppers. So for the ripe ones, well, you have two options. You can pick them before they get ripe, or if you have too many ripe ones, the factories usually take the ripe ones but at a much lower rate. So if you treat your field well, you should be able to get a £1/4 pound per tree. At plot 1, we were getting way less than £1/4 pound per tree, because we were getting like 300 pounds from 6,000 trees. So that's like 0.05 pound per tree. But at plot 2, we were able to get £1/4 pound per tree, and £1/4 pound per tree per week. And so if you have 4,000 trees, you should be able to reap 1,000 pounds of pepper per week. And if you sell between $100 to $400 per pound, and that's usually the range, you should be able to make a profit on your input to that field. So if you plan to make a profit, you can plan as much as possible for the pests and the viruses and for fertilizing. But then there are things that are really out of our control, like the climate and the weather conditions, because as we said, plot 2 was doing so well, but we were only able to make back what we inputted into the plot, because the rains came and then it really started to damage the peppers. And again, once the trees go down a certain route, it's very difficult to get them back to high productivity. So thanks for joining us. Send your comments if you have any questions. We will definitely try to answer them as best as possible. Remember, this is just based on our experiences that we're sharing with you, and we are open to any comments or suggestions that you might have as well. So look out for the other videos in this series, and where we will go more in depth into our pest management and nutrient management that's based on our own experiences. Thank you. Remember to like, subscribe, and share.